Welcome to Rhinestones Rants, the podcast where we spill the unfiltered tea on the dance world. I am your host, Alyssa Better, and today we are coming in hot with one of the biggest decisions a dancer will ever make, choosing the right dance program for your graduating senior dancer. Is it a B.A., a B.F.A., a conservatory life, a commercial track, concert dance? What's the difference, and how do you know what's right for you? And more importantly, what questions should you be asking? What are the red flags to watch out for? And of course, you always have to make sure that we here at Rhinestones Rants, we are going to break it down all for you. I'm joined by no other than ReJana Krause, also AKA the dance mom of all dance moms. Between her experience and mine, we have seen it all. My daughter is heading into her sophomore year as a B.F.A. dance major at SDSU, and let me tell you, the college process was a complete wild one. And ReJana, her daughter Macy, she applied and got accepted to over 34 dance programs. Yes, you heard that right, 34. Insane. So yes, we have done our homework when it comes to applying to these schools. Today, we are handing you the ultimate checklist, what to ask for, what to look for, how to figure out where you truly belong, whether it's your dream is Broadway, a ballet company, or blending dance with another passion. We have all of the insight you need. So if you're a parent stepping into this world for the first time or a dancer mapping out your next big leap, this episode is packed with the real talk you wish you had someone told you sooner. So grab your coffee, grab your notebook, maybe a glass of wine, no judgment, and smash that like button, hit subscribe, share the love, and let's sashay into it. Welcome to Rhinestones and Rants, where the glitz of the dance world meets the real talk of industry, and a dance mom who lived it every day. This podcast isn't just about perfect pirouettes and dazzling costumes. It's about the raw, unfiltered journey of raising dancers, navigating the competitive scene, and balancing the chaos of life beyond the studio. So grab your coffee or wine, adjust that messy bun, and join me and special guests for a little bit of rhinestone-covered realness. Click that like button below, subscribe, and let's get into it. So welcome, ReJana, to Rhinestones and Rants. I am so excited that you are here. I can't say enough about it. ReJana and I have known each other for over 10 years, and I want to just start by saying I have called her ReJana for the past 10 years, and not until this second did she ever correct me and say, it's ReJana. What is it?
ReJana.
ReJana. Okay. You see, 10 years I've been calling you the wrong name, and we're
That's
still
okay.
friends. It's amazing.
Okay.
But we are dance friends for, like I said, over 10 years.
Yes.
And what's amazing about it is we don't live near each other.
No.
You live in Texas. We met at Nationals.
In Florida.
Of all places. Our girls were going for gold, like wanted to be first place more than anything. They bonded instantly.
Yes.
And Macy, her daughter, is also an actress. So we had that common bond as well. And we just sat there literally that whole entire weekend talking and comparing notes about
so much fun,
about dancers and who could possibly win and what this person said to somebody. And it was like pure mama drama, gaslighting, gossip, like anything you could possibly. It was amazing. And from there, a friendship sprouted, which is what I love so much about this dance world, because you meet sometimes your best friends in a ladies' room or in a dance room. And in our case, it was our daughters that brought us together. And whenever you came to California, we would always get together.
Yes,
and
same in Dallas.
Same in Dallas when we were there. Same exact thing. And you know, it was great. And when I said that I was going to be doing this crazy podcast of mine, I called her up immediately, because when it comes to the college application experience, there was nobody in this world that I could sit down and do 2 back-to-back episodes with about this. I mean, her and I were comparing notes, and our kids aren't even in the same year. Joelle's going into her sophomore year. Macy was 1 year behind. 34 schools, right?
Yes. Craziness.
34 schools her daughter got accepted into dance programs with, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But I did want to set it up. I wanted to, thank you so much for... She flew here for this, which is amazing, just to kind of educate everybody on this wild journey. And I know, like right now we're in August, and people are starting to really get into what this process is. And I look back at it with PTSD. It was
complete.
Yes. It was quite
crazy times.
Crazy times. So in keeping with the whole notion of what this podcast is about, if I only knew then what I know now, I wish there was something like this then.
Oh, for sure.
That somebody could have like educated me and told me like all of these little things that we needed to know when we were applying to schools. And what's crazy about it is it's changing.
Every year it changes. So you can't always even rely on what happened last year because it could be so different this year.
100%. So I think best, versus me stealing all your thunder, I think, to introduce yourself, talk about your daughter, bragging rights are completely open to you right now. So, take over the floor and, just kind of tell people, I mean, when I say she has credentials to talk about this, she has credentials. But yeah, I think it's best if you start.
Yeah. So my daughter started dancing at the age of 2, the ripe old age, and really progressed, much like Joelle did through the years. Trained with a lot of different people, with a lot of different studios, with conventions, did the convention circuit, competition dance. She was a young arts winner in dance and modern contemporary, went to a performing arts high school. So very much ingrained that this is what she wanted to do long term. So that's how I ended up here with you.
And her daughter is an incredible dancer in pretty much all styles. And I think that's an important part of this conversation because as we start to break down schools and as we start to talk about, choosing the right program that is, acceptable for your kid, that's an important part. Like what part do they acclimate towards? What part do they love in the dance world? Like everybody might be trained in all disciplines, but they might have, whether it's hip hop or whether it's sassy jazz or whether it's ballet, they might have a certain genre that they acclimate to more than the other. Your daughter specifically, though, she's actually pretty well trained at all of them and has a pretty strong love for all of them as well.
She does. She's very versatile, which has been helpful in this whole process, actually.
So I said before, these 34 schools, I know people have got to say, why? What were you thinking? I mean, we're going to get into all the things you have to do to apply to these schools, but what were you thinking? 34 schools.
So she was chasing merit. So she knew that she was going to cast a wide net. She had some schools that were top of her list, as everyone does, but she was also open to seeing what was out there. And there were a lot of programs that she didn't know as much about, so she wanted to explore those. So I do have to preface this by saying that she had a couple of large auditions. So she did the NYCDA summer audition, college audition, where she got, I think, 6 acceptances and scholarships. She did Dance Wave, where she got, I don't even know, tons of college acceptances.
And everybody should be taking notes right now as you say that, because like NYCDA, if you don't go to the convention for regionals, you should, if you are a like junior coming up, you should absolutely in that nationals go. You don't even have to attend their nationals. You can go for this college day.
Audition, right.
And they have a lot of really big schools there, and they give scholarships and they also give acceptances right on the spot.
Right.
So it is a place, if you don't want to fly around for auditions during audition season, you can get that immediate gratification and get seen by a lot of these schools.
And get those early acceptances, which mean a lot, because she knew going into senior year, like she could easily go to 2 or 3 of those schools without any problem and be completely happy.
It takes the pressure off to a certain extent. It does. And it's like there is so many different facets of trying to get in. So Dance Wave was another one.
Dance Wave was another one.
I know Velocity has really built up. I mean, it was new for them last year or the year before, and they've really built up that program. And now even dance teams are coming to these specific nationals as well, which brings me to the question, why do you think so many people confuse dance team with majoring in dance in college? Like that is, they're like, as soon as you say, oh, my daughter's going to go for dance at whatever college they're going to, they're like, oh, so she's on dance team. Right. Why do you think this is such a crazy thing?
Well, I think for the average person, that's what they see about a college and dance, right? They see football, they see basketball, they see, sideline dance teams, pom teams, etc. So they're in their minds when they think college, they think, oh, a sideline dancer, which they're 2 entirely different programs. And in fact, what's interesting is most programs, if you're going to major in dance, you're not even eligible to do like sideline or pom or dance team. So they're very, very different programs.
Yeah, and I keep bringing it up because it is a really regular question that we get no matter how many people I educate. So hoping anybody that's watching it really does understand the difference now. Yes. So today we're going to talk about the different programs. There's the B.A, there's the B.F.A, there's the Conservatory, there's the Conservatory program, was a commercial. I have it down. The commercial lane as well, right?
Right.
So those are some of the programs that are here. So I think the best place to start would be the conservatory program, right? So let's discuss what is the conservatory program.
Right. So I would say a conservatory program is where 80 to 90% of your college time is really spent in dance training. So whether it's technique, whether it's certain styles, whether it's, anatomy of the dancer, getting in the mind of the dancer, those things, that is really what you're focusing on in a conservatory type program. And you're going to have a few of the academic classes along with it. Versus if you do a B.A. program, it's maybe 40 to 50% dance. So it's a very different makeup of classes. And so I think a lot of people look at that and say, how much of my college experience do I want to spend dancing versus doing some of the extra academics or maybe even double majoring and things of that nature.
So when you talk about a B.A. program, well, actually, let's start B.F.A.
Okay.
So a B.F.A. program, you talk about, how do you see that differing in a B.F.A. program?
So to me, the dancer that goes to a B.F.A. program is one that is wanting like the performance aspect of dance. They're wanting to be in shows and be on stage and get that aspect. Learning more about choreography and about, making shows, that sort of thing. So they're really training most of them to do dance to some degree as a career. Whereas I feel like a BA program, they may still want to do professional dance to some capacity, but you might find people who are more interested in like owning a studio. So maybe they're going to double major with business to get that experience to be able to do something more on the business side of dance.
And I think on a BFA program too, it's really, like you said, it's more around you're spending a majority of your time and your grades are, it's not like you have to show up.
Yes.
Because you're getting graded on physically dancing
Yes.
and showing your stuff, and you're spending so many hours in the studio, much less time. Like you're doing your GEs, of course, the general education classes you have to do, but you are really focused a lot more in that dance lane. And some people choose to do a BA because you can still dance, maybe not at that high level, but you could have a different major, whether it's business. Joelle, for example, she's going for her BFA. Through taking general education classes, she took communications, fell in love with it, and now she's adding communications on, which will keep her in school instead of graduating early because she had credits.
Yes.
It'll keep her in school now for the full 4 years because you dance so much, and you can only you have to build your classes around the dance. Because the dance curriculum comes absolutely
it's kind of set, yes. And it's set into, a lot of times a cohort. So those particular classes are very set and structured, and you really have to work around those in a BFA program.
And your dancer has to know also that if you are in a cohort, when you are touring the schools or you're looking, go ask to see a dance class.
Yes.
Take a look at the people that are in that dance class. Are they your kind of people? And I'm not saying like, it's wonderful to go to college and meet people that are not necessarily like you. That's part of the college experience. But if you are in a cohort where you may only be dancing with 10, 15, 25 people, some programs are small and they have 25
Very
people.
small.
And if those are not your people, you need to be aware you are with those people all the time.
All the time.
So if they're not your people, that might not be your program. And also, when you are going, and we're going to talk about probably more in the next episode about the audition processes and what's involved in that. But at that audition process, you will actually find out the style that they do.
And you're auditioning them as much as they're auditioning you.
Which I think people are not up with, right?
Because you're looking at the instructors. Are these the people that, I'm comfortable taking class with? What is their style? How do they teach? How do they handle corrections and things like that? So you're really trying to figure out, is this the right place for me, and am I going to be comfortable here?
So a pro of the BFA program would be that you're getting to really do your passion. You're getting to do your dance. You're getting to be with, do what you love to do every single day. The con of it would be that you don't really get to explore that much outside of it. And also BFAs, and a lot of the schools that we went to when we were touring, they did not really allow, or I'm not even going to use the word allow, they did not suggest for you to do dance team. If you have a dancer who wants to take, something outside of the program and you want to go and do dance team, well, guess what? You can't do dance team because what they're concerned about is you're spending so many hours training in your major that then you leave the program after 5 hours of dance, 6 hours of dance, and then you're going to go train at a D1 level
Right.
for dance team, and you really could risk injury.
Right.
So, and if you get injured, guess what? You're going to fail out of school because you are getting graded to perform. So one thing is that they want to have you avoid injury. And the other thing is, if you have a dancer who really wants to do dance team, you really need to ask those questions. Is it allowed? And is it highly suggested not to? Because I could tell you in a lot of the programs Joelle looked at, they said they highly suggest you not doing dance team. So definitely a con. With the B.A program, what would you say one of the negatives are to that?
I would say limited performance opportunities. That's the thing that we saw. Macy actually did apply to a couple of programs that were B.A programs because she wanted to explore that. And that's the thing that we found is that just the number of shows and opportunities to perform was a little different. We also found that many times in the B.A programs, they weren't bringing in as many outside choreographers and people within the industry to get those connections, which I do feel like in a B.F.A program, you're going to get a little bit more of that.
And important questions to ask as well, like what connections do they have? Because if you're spending all this money on a dance education, you want to hope that you're going to leave and you're going to work. And
get a job.
If some of these schools do not have the connections, that definitely poses a problem. And for a Bachelor of Arts, which is the B.A., the benefit of that would be that, you know, the world is kind of your oyster. You get to dance and you get to really explore other things. Like I always look at it as like the plan B, the plan C. Let's say dance doesn't work out as the main thing. Or some people would actually go to school for dance and they have no intention of having a life full of dance.
Right.
They're going like for opportunities, creativity. They're not ready to give it up yet. And they take, I call it like little bird seeds and all the different, you know, avenues of college. It allows you to grow up for the 4 years, and that's okay too. It's just, it's an expensive proposition. Right. So you should really understand that as well. Right. So I want to go back to Conservatory for a second because there are some very high level conservatories that are out there. And I know that Macy, you know, she went through it with Juilliard, for example. Yes. So can you talk to us a little bit about the conservatory program at Juilliard? Not so much at first about the audition, but more about what that program offers. It's like everybody says it's the Harvard of conservatories, right?
Correct.
And everybody that's a dancer, oh, you're trying out for Juilliard. Like that whole thing.
It's like the pie in the sky school to go to, right?
So can you talk to us a little bit about it and what Macy's experience was and why did she choose to actually audition for it?
Right. So I think with Juilliard, it is a very in-depth level of training. Very qualified professors and teachers that are teaching the different aspects of dance. You know, it's modern, contemporary, ballet focused, and very, very good training at a very high level. There's a lot of performing opportunities. Obviously, you're right in New York City, so there's so many opportunities within the city. I know there's a girl that Macy knows right now who is at Juilliard, but she's also doing like a Broadway show. So, I mean, there's so many different things that you can do being in the city and being at Juilliard. Plus, Juilliard carries the name, right? You graduated from Juilliard. This is amazing. And so really what, you know, Macy originally was not going to audition for Juilliard. And part of the reason was she really wanted that traditional college experience. She had been in a performing arts school since 3rd grade. So no football, no games, no homecomings, you know, that kind of thing. She had really put on the side burner to be able to really focus on dance all these years. And so she said, for college, I think I really want the college experience.
Which is very important when people are looking at schools, like a lot of these big schools. In the next episode, part 2, we're going to talk about like NYU and Pace and some of the schools that really have these strong dance programs. But it is really important that you look to see like what does your kid want. My kid didn't even want anything to do with New York. Like she only, because of acting, she only wanted to apply to schools in LA. And I'm like, are you crazy? There's so many great programs. Like, what are you doing? Not that LA didn't have great dance programs, but that's where she was applying to which is fine. They had great programs here and she loves where she is. And I do believe everybody ends up where they're supposed to be. Yes. However, in Macy's case, listening to your child, and you and I had lots of conversations about this because with a talent like Macy, everybody's like waiting. Where is
Where's she
Macy going to end
go?
up? Because
Yes.
she's so fantastic. And, there's a stigma like, oh, what do you mean she's going to go? I'm making this. And I no hate on this, please, because ASU is a great school. It's not that it's not a great school, but Macy had very high grades. She had
Yes.
very high performance value. She could get the Willy Wonka ticket into dance pretty much. I mean, 34 schools and 34 dance acceptances. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So clearly we're talking about somebody here who was extremely talented. So everybody was on pin, including myself. Where's
Where's she
Macy going
gonna
to go to school? And, you shouldn't have to explain yourself to anybody. And I think that Macy made a very adult decision about, she advocated for herself. She even
Right.
had to sit there and convince you as her mom why she wanted to go to ASU. Well, no,
Or
I'm sorry, University of Arizona.
Yes.
Thank you. University of Arizona. And she really advocated for herself so well because she said she's been in this conservatory kind of program and she really wanted performing arts all these years. And now she wanted the rah-rah. She
Right.
wanted to, maybe be part of a sorority. She
Right.
wanted the whole, and she deserved to be. And she's also going to get an incredible dance education.
Exactly.
So don't always get the peer pressure. I guess
Right.
the message is of where like, oh, I spent all this money on dance and this is where my
Yes.
kids should go. There's a
Right.
lot of outside factors you should be considering.
Absolutely.
Now,
Well, and there's only a few programs, to be honest, that are in that upper echelon of dance training in a conservatory type training program, but that has the rah-rah. I mean, there's maybe a handful of those programs across the entire country. So it's really limited when you think about it to be able to get that high level of dance training, but experience the true college experience. All in
yeah,
one.
I concur with that. And Juilliard would have been hard. I mean, so she auditioned for Juilliard.
She did.
She made it
she
all the
actually
way.
she had a teacher at her school. She went to performing arts school in Dallas. And one of her teachers there is a Juilliard grad. And he was like, you need to do this audition. So she literally sent it in the day before it was due. She waited till the very last minute. It was one of the last schools that she applied to. And so she sent it in and with really no, like, I don't know what's going to happen with this. And so the day that she got the email, she, was shocked. She's like, Mom, I got a call back to Juilliard. And I was like, that's amazing, And she's like,
Like
wow.
chills. Like,
Yeah, she's like, I have to go. I mean, it's Juilliard. You can't say no to Juilliard. I said, absolutely. Let's go. Let's do it.
So she ended up going.
She did.
And yeah, we'll get into like her experience. But I feel like with her, I'm almost happy she didn't get in because I think it would have been a really hard choice for her to give up what
Yes.
she really wanted from a college rah-rah experience
Right.
to, you can't say no to
You can't-
Juilliard.
Right. And that would have been really hard because those are her people. She loves the training there. She loves the professors there. And she knew that. So she was like, it would have been a very hard decision for her, for sure.
Yeah. And so like the other school I wanted to talk about was University of North Carolina because that's another really big conservatory program.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about
Yeah.
how that program might differ, let's say?
Right. So UNCSA, which is the specific program, they actually have a high school program all the way through a college program. Very heavily based in modern contemporary ballet focused. It's a great program, very much a conservatory program. A lot of their grads end up at Juilliard and some of the big programs like that. So they have a great track record even from the high school side. And then you can continue on there into college as well. But you do, again, it's not necessarily the traditional college campus based on where it's actually located.
And price is definitely a thing with these schools. So when we talk
For
about Juilliard, just looking at my notes, tuition for Juilliard, and everybody, don't quote me on these, like they change every
Every
single
year.
minute, every year but I think that these are the ones for the upcoming year that everybody's applying to. The tuition for Juilliard is $55,500, and then when you add housing and food of $23,500, you're talking $80,000 to go to
Right.
Juilliard. And there's a lot more. I mean, if you need new point shoes and you add on all the expenses and then travel, depending where you're
Yes.
located, people don't really take into account that as well, as far as, how much it's going to cost wherever you live to bring your kid back for holidays and,
Right.
and to go there for performances
Right.
and things like that. That really does add to your ultimate total. And then University of North Carolina, in-state, the total is 27,166. Not terrible. And if you're in state, you possibly can live at home or whatever. But out of state, it goes up to 46,000.
Right.
And then when you add your housing into it, you could be looking in excess of 70,000 as well.
Exactly.
So again, high conservatory, high price tag items, but there are extreme benefits that you are getting out of these schools. I mean,
for sure.
The connections.
Yes, the connections, the training, the name that's attached to it, the experience. It's very much a total dancer's experience to go through these B.F.A. conservatory type programs.
And then Boston Conservatory of Berkeley. Another amazing conservatory.
Yes.
I know people who go there
Yes.
and absolutely love it. And they have definitely a distinction on ballet and the modern and,
Right.
interdisciplinary,
Yes.
actions that they have. Unbelievable contacts.
And they just had their first commercial class graduate this past year. So this was their
fantastic.
first full class of commercial dancers to come out of that program.
And
So-
people should be listening to that as well because things change so frequently. You don't it's so overwhelming, this whole process,
Yes.
right? And then you have deadlines and tapes and all these things you have to do to actually get into these programs. So you should start creating a list of these
Yes.
questions and how has your program changed from last year to this year? Is there anything that you're focused on? Is there anything you're adding on? Because if you have a dancer who really does want to work, let's say on a Beyonce tour or
Right.
Taylor Swift tour, you need to have that commercial training. And if they're not going to get it in the conservatory program or in the university program that you send your kid, what training are they going to do to keep up with that commercial side of the house? So that is
Right.
a really good ad that they made, would make a commercial kid may take a look deeper at that program.
Exactly.
Maybe they didn't prior. That program is $84,000. So you see the trend here that we're going. The 80s seem to be, and these programs only go up every single year.
Yes.
So definitely something to think about as well. So talk to me a little bit about SUNY Purchase, another really great.
Yes. So SUNY Purchase, great program. I would say it's very modern focused. If you have a kid that's really into that style, that is a great place to go. It can be less expensive, especially for in-state, but even out of state, I found it to be more affordable than a lot of the programs that were out there. It's a very selective program. But it's a very, very good program where I see lots of their graduates going on and, being parts of contemporary companies across the country or even outside of the United States.
Yeah, I have in my notes here, strong connections to companies like Paul Taylor,
Yes.
Martha Graham, affordable in-state tuition for New York residents. The in-state is $34,000. That's in College World. I know it sounds expensive, but in
York,
College
too.
World in New York, that is
That's
that's
great.
a bargain.
Yes.
It's like coupons. In-state, for off-campus, $22,000, and then out-of-state, you're looking at about $44,000. But then when you add your housing in New York, expensive,
Right.
you could kind of come up if you're an out-of-state student at about $70-something thousand. And even if you are in-state, but you want to give your kid the college experience of living in the dorms, which a lot of kids do want to do, that those are definitely factors to consider as well.
Right.
Is there anything else you can think about that program that we're not touching on that people should know about? Or is it pretty much their connections and their style of
I would
dance?
say their connections and style. I think that that's a really important program to go to in person, like you said earlier, and see if that's your style, see if that's what you like, and if that's what you really mesh with. I think that's very important there.
So now the ALE program.
Yes.
That has changed so much.
So much.
Even if you look back at it 5 years ago and you look back at it 3 years ago and even to last year, that program is evolving and it is
Yes.
becoming strong and it's becoming much harder to get into.
So selective.
Can you talk
Yes.
to me about that?
Yes. So ALE is amazing. I personally, as a mother, I loved that program. I loved the facilities are gorgeous. I mean, these dance spaces are incredible. I have a kid who likes good dance space. And so that was one of the things that we looked at. Of course, Juilliard's amazing. USC is amazing. But so is ALE Fordham. And their facilities are incredible. The people they bring in are incredible. They have professional companies and they actually train in the same space with the B.F.A. students, which is so nice to have that camaraderie, meeting those people, seeing what they go through to get ready for shows. It's just a totally different experience, but incredible.
And they teach the Horton technique
Correct.
as well, right?
Yes.
And I think that's also something to consider, depending what style your dancer might have been trained in prior, what style of dancer will it be a hard stretch for your
Right.
kid to actually change direction, or maybe that's why they're going to school. They want to learn other styles, right?
Right.
So definitely things to consider. And that was something that, like, in my notes, I wrote down when we were looking at schools, and I kept a spreadsheet. I know you had a
Yes.
spreadsheet too of like every single thing. And let me tell you, spreadsheets become your best friends.
Your life. Yes.
With this program. I mean, I felt like my spreadsheet was my Bible going
Yes.
through this. And Anne, who I work with, she helped me with the spreadsheet because she's like wants detective work. She
Yes.
gets under the hood, and she created
It's
this
all the
unbelievable spreadsheet, which actually helped her when her daughter was applying as well. So, yeah, spreadsheets are your friend for sure. Now, just to be clear, okay, so Boston Conservatory, Berkeley is $84,000. I think we said SUNY Purchase was the cheaper one. Now, Ailey, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what it went up to.
I haven't looked at it lately. What is it now?
$101,000.
I believe that.
So,
yeah.
some of these schools give very little merit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them give really strong merit, and you have to kind of look at that too.
Right.
And some of the merit's really only based on need-based,
Right.
like in NYU,
NYU,
let's say.
it's need-based.
Need-based. And then some of the other schools, they're much more generous because they have a lot more donors, or they have that. So,
Right.
if money obviously is the core of all of this, and it's something that you really need to, like you said, for Macy, she was chasing money. Every dancer is different of what you're going into. But if you know 101,000 is really out of your reach, don't even apply, because
Right.
you walk in there and the horns are sounding and
Right.
the birds are chirping and your dancer falls in love, and then it's 101,000, you get no money. It's devastating to
Correct.
take your dancer
Right.
down that. So now I kind of want to switch into, what are questions that you should be asking not only your dancer, not only like maybe the teachers that know your dancer, but what are the questions you should be really making sure you get answered when you're taking a look at these specific programs?
I think it's really important to ask about performance opportunities. Some programs you're not going to perform till you're a junior or senior, depending upon the school. Some programs you can start auditioning for shows in your freshman year. Sometimes in cohort settings, like you're going to do a show every semester. That's part of the curriculum. So asking, what does that look like, especially if you have a dancer that likes to perform? How often are we going to do that? Is it a competitive process? Is it an automatic process based on the year that you are? What are the opportunities for outside choreographers? And I think that is so important, because that is, especially for a B.F.A student, that's when you're making those industry connections, those dance connections, is really in that, college experience, and you're getting to work with these people. They're finding out what kind of dancer you are. You're finding out more about their programs and where they're maybe the director of a
new show,
a new show,
and
or a
they could
tour, or
possibly
whatever.
hire you because they just met this amazing
Correct.
dancer, male or female.
Correct.
And they're like, I was so impressed, and I'm starting this new show, and I need dancers. And boom, the phone rings.
Yes.
That's where the magic happens.
That's where you meet
right?
it. Right. And so you're making those connections. And I think that's something that's so important, is that just because you're going to school for a B.F.A, you're not guaranteed a job at the end of 4 years.
Such a good point.
And you are going to have to make those connections and put in the work, whether it's in summer intensives in the years that you're in college and going and meeting these different programs, or, some of the programs that have them, like Complexions or Body Traffic. These are companies that you could be a part of after college, but it's going to be important to build those relationships while you're in college.
And, Brian Friedman was on a few weeks ago, and he talked about, having that magnetizing personality. So you can go to college, you could spend $101,000, you could be this incredible dancer.
Right.
If you're not magnetizing, as he puts it, you're going to have to hustle to try to find work. And that is really something, you need to sit down with your dance teachers, your family, like to really discuss, like before you put yourself in any kind of debt or any kind of situation, because not everybody, unfortunately, is going to work. The real job starts when you leave college, and and if you didn't make those relationships, you're that much more behind the 8 ball of trying to catch up. I think another really important question to ask is the genres, right?
Yes.
A lot of these schools, a lot of the top ones that we're talking about right now, and some of the ones that we will be talking about in the next episode, they only offer like modern, contemporary, like. They don't offer, and not everyone has a commercial program. Not everyone, if you like tap, focuses on tap. And sometimes it's Bob Fosse jazz, and it's not Beyonce kind of jazz, right? So it's these are questions I think you should be asking. What other questions do you think would be really important to?
I think it's important to know, like, what is their access to physical therapy, or what happens if you have injuries? Do they have people on site, on staff that are physical therapists? What happens if you do get injured? Because as you mentioned earlier, attending and being in class and taking class is where you're getting your grades. So what happens if you break an ankle or, something and you're out for a period of time? How is that assessed in your grades? What are some of the things that you do to maybe make up for that? I know in my daughter's high school program that was a conservatory, she had double knee surgery in sophomore year. So she was writing lots of papers and observing lots of dance that was happening to make up for the time that she wasn't able to dance. So it's the same situation in college.
And ask those questions
Ask the
too.
questions.
And then the faculty that's there, when was the last time they worked? Right? Because I hate to say it, you don't want an old dinosaur because what might have really worked when they were in their 20s and 30s and possibly 40s, the industry has really changed right now.
Right.
So if they haven't worked recently, then what connections do they have? And I think that becomes important too. And, in my business, I'm always telling people, I don't care how long you've been selling for, you need to consistently sharpen your pencil, right? Because the next best thing is always out there. And when I've met with, whether it was Brian that was here or Brooklyn J or other choreographers that I've had the opportunity to sit down with, how do they stay current?
Right.
You have to consistently be on the leading edge. So does the dance program you're signing up for, are they teaching the same curriculum that they taught 6 years ago, 8 years ago? Because the industry might be screaming for something else. I mean, there was like that whacking dance thing that they did and the crumping and like all of these different things. I remember one day, like we were in studio dance and we took some intensive and they're like, we're going to be doing whacking and crumping. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is all of this stuff? And it was a thing. It was a really big thing.
Very big thing.
I was impressed because that was the flavor of the year that everybody was becoming like these great crumpers and whackers. And all I'm saying is, does your program move with how the industry is moving? And I would ask that question. I did ask that question actually when we went because it was an important question to me. And some people were very honest. No, we're not going to be all things for all people.
Right.
So does that work for you? Does that work for your dancer? And what's another question that you think would be, like I think about it like floors, like the facility, like you talked about Allie before. Like Allie has these, incredible facilities.
Gorgeous.
NYU
Amazing.
has USC.
Chapman Dance.
Gorgeous
Amazing.
facilities, right? So how often have they changed their flooring? You know, is it a place you can see yourself inspired, right? If you go into, people say sometimes depending on how they dress, that's how they create.
Right.
If they're dressed sassy, then you're going to get a sassy piece from them. If they're dressed grunge, you're going to get a grunge piece from them.
Right.
Is your dancer one of those dancers? Can they get inspired of where they're going to be spending so much of their time?
For sure. I think it's so important. And your dancer has to know what's important to them, right? And in Macy's high school program, they had these incredible studios with lots of natural light. Some of these spaces that they danced in were nicer than a lot of the college campuses that we visited. So I knew she was going to be selective in looking at that. But it's important to her having light, having access to windows. That's what she finds joy in when she dances. So knowing like what's important to your dancer and does the specific location offer that is going to be so important.
And you brought up before mental health, and I don't want to just skip over that because I do think it's really important. Even if you're not a dance major, mental health and how a university or conservatory program does deal with that is important. But how do they also deal with injury and injury prevention, right? I know at SDSU, that's a really big thing for them. She takes a lot of classes on how to treat your body like a temple. And, they're trying to promote longevity, that these dancers can dance when they're 40, 50 years old without having injury. And maybe they're not dancing as perfect as they were at 20, but they're dancing.
Still dancing.
And that is by treating the body as such.
Absolutely.
So asking those questions and finding out what do they do for that is important because some schools don't have that as part of their curriculum, right?
Or maybe they don't have on site. That's a huge difference too. If your dancer has to leave campus to go get physical therapy or to go work through an injury, that's taking time out of, being on campus. Do they have it right there in the dance building? I think that's so important for the dancer.
So moving on to red flags, right?
Yes.
Because there are a lot of red flags in some of these programs. And I knew a lot of questions to ask when I went through it. And as we went through the process, I was getting better and better with my questions. Why? Because I was learning what other parents were asking. And I was like, ooh, that's a good question.
Right.
And I was starting to gather my list where it was becoming part of, our language when we were out there talking about it. But there were red flags that you see. And I'll start with one of them just being like high turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Like who was running the program maybe a
Yes.
year ago is not running the program anymore.
Right.
And why is that?
Right.
And I'm all about turnover. Like I love learning from different people, and I think it's great when they have the opportunity. That's why we love the convention lane so much,
Right.
because you get to work with different choreographers. But if there's a lot of turnover within the dance department itself, you tend to wonder why, right?
Well, too, I think, is the program what it is because of that director? Because if it is, what happens when that director leaves and moves on to something new? Or is it a cohesive unit of instructors that really make up that department? Because you've seen programs that totally switched focus once that director left and a new one came in. So let's say you go in and you went to the school because of the incredible ballet they have, and then the ballet focused director leaves, and now it's something totally different. Is your dancer going to be happy there?
Yeah, that is a red flag. So take note of that red flag. The other thing to take note of, when you talk to other dancers that are there, when you have the opportunity and you find out that it's a cutthroat, toxic environment, and that toxicity is a really big issue because you're spending so much time there. So that aligns to mental health, right? And if they're cutthroat and they utilize their power to tell you if you're going to work or if you're not going to work, or what do those, there's different ways to lead. There's different ways to teach.
Right.
You can find out very quickly from talking to other people and taking a class or going for that audition what kind of culture that is within that program. And for some people, they like that competitive spirit actually, and they want to rise above that, like bring it on type of thing. But there are other dancers that, they might be more sensitive or more artistic, let's say, or it doesn't work for them, that kind of tough love type of thing. And you really need to make sure, what is the culture there? How do they teach? Do they empower?
Right.
Or do they just crack the whip?
Right. And dancers, just like students, all learn differently, right?
Correct.
And the way that a teacher is offering feedback and offering corrections and all of that, and does it make sense? And that's so important to talk to the dancers that are in the program, because they're going to be honest with you and tell you what it's really like. And is it super competitive? I think out of all the programs that we went to, she maybe heard that one seemed to be more on the competitive side amongst the dancers versus, so many of the programs, it's very collaborative. They work together. They want to bring people from all different aspects of dance into one.
And I agree 1,000,000,000% on that, because I think that when you're taking a look at the individual, what works for Macy might be different for Joelle. Like Macy loves ballet. Not that Joelle doesn't like it, but she doesn't love it the way Macy loves it, right? So Macy would be more inclined to say, well, this school may not have as strong of a ballet program, where Joelle would be like, oh, well, it has a stronger commercial dance program. And Joelle would be like, I don't care so much about the ballet part of it. Right? They have ballet, I'll get my ballet and call it a day. So I do think that they are all interconnected with that. We did talk about the facilities, right? Like knowing if those facilities are good, getting inspired, being creative. So I'll just say that again. That is a red flag to look for. Also, like, what is the aftercare?
Yes.
Do they give you enough downtime? And you have to take a look at because most of the schools do fill your schedule that first semester and second semester. Is there enough downtime for body recovery?
Right.
And some schools like to pile it in because they think it's impressive to show, like, they're going to go here and they're going to go there. And we're going to talk about a day in the life.
Right.
But is there enough body recovery? Because our kids right now, I mean, the kids that are specifically in studio dance before they go to college, they are dancing for a lot of hours, right? But when we come back from a convention weekend after dancing all week long, Joelle takes the day off.
Right.
She needs body recovery.
You have to recover.
And if you're not doing that, you're not self-caring. So if a school is pushing that, that says also a lot about the school as well. So I do think it's something that they should look for.
Right.
Anything else you think that we're missing on it?
I would just ask about the extra hours because, the number of hours that your dancer is taking in a B.F.A program, that's just the required courses. Usually your rehearsals, your choreography for shows, if you're working with a master student who's working on their pieces for a show, that's all outside of that, 15, 17, 18 hours that your dancer's taking. So what do those hours look like? How many extra hours is my kid going to be in the studio throughout the week? That's important to know before you get into it.
Right. And I know at Joelle's school, they have this capstone project. So
Right.
in order for the seniors to graduate, they need to do a capstone program where they're in charge of picking their dancers, writing what the show is going to
Right.
be about, the lighting, costumes, every single thing from beginning, middle, and end of the show they're responsible for. So they suggest to freshmen or sophomores, you can go and audition for it, but they tell freshmen, a lot of you probably won't get
Right.
chosen for it. But if you do, there's a very large time commitment with it. And when
Right.
I talk about that, because to add on to your time commitment piece of it, if you wanted to add a communications major,
Yes.
is that something
Is it
that's looked
possible?
down upon? Is it
Mhm.
possible? Can you get out in 4 years
Mhm.
doing it? And if you can't, and it's 5 years, are you taking that into your calculation of how much school is actually going to cost?
Right.
And I know at SDSU, they applaud you taking another major. Most of the kids do. Most of them do take a sociology or communications. They're not taking brain surgery.
Right.
They're not pre-med students.
Yes.
But they are taking things along those lines that are more manageable programs than astronomy or biology or chemistry or something like that.
Right.
So those are red flags. If they say no, that should be a red flag
Right.
that you say, okay, this might not be the right program
Right.
for
And
your
you really
dancer.
need to find that out up front. Ask those questions about double majors or minors and all of that. Because if that is something that your student's interested in, you want to know. Same with study abroad. Find out, is this something they offer? Is it through the dance department or is it more on the academic side? Is that something that's open
And if it's
to our
and if
students?
it's available on the academic side, will the program allow you to go?
Exactly.
Because some of them will
Exactly.
not. I know that there is opportunity in the summertime with SDSU to go abroad and dance,
Right.
but during the year, no.
The
it's
other
not.
thing is, with our kids having all of the acting and modeling experience that they have, asking that question: what if my kid books a job? Are they going to be able to leave for a finite amount of time to go do this job? And I can tell you, the vast majority of the programs will say
Said no.
They'll say no. That is not a possibility.
Even SDSU said it, but they did work with her when she did book something. And it depends how long.
It depends how long. Right.
If you're going to be out for 3 months, well, no, you might have to actually take that semester off and you're
Right.
going back to school for another semester.
Right. And if you're in a cohort program, you're going to start over as a freshman.
USC absolutely said that. USC, we applied to USC for the acting program.
Right.
But same thing. And
Right.
they said, I said, well, what happens? And it's acting. So you would think that they want you to work, right? You would think
Yeah.
it's an acting program. They want you to work. But no, they actually said, no, if you book a job and it's going to keep you out, you have to get that approved and it's going to keep you out 1 to 3 months. Well, guess what? It's a cohort. Your cohort's going ahead. And when
you're
you
not.
come back, you're going to have to go start at the beginning of what you missed. And all of a sudden, now you could be possibly a junior who's 21, 22 years old.
With freshmen.
And you're all of a sudden hanging out with freshmen and sophomores who are 18. And all of a sudden, that age difference is a thing. And do you want to sit there and work with the people versus your own people? And he said, I bring that up because you really need to think about it because the other kids have had that problem before. And those were the objections that they brought up.
Right.
No different than dance, right?
Right. Same thing.
Clear thing. What is the percentage of graduates? What do they do when they graduate?
Exactly.
What are they currently doing is
Where
a
are they
really
now?
big question because one of the schools we went to that will remain anonymous, you can go to these schools and ask your own questions.
Yes.
We asked that question and the first answer they said was, well, one of the kids is a Pilates instructor. And I was like, oh, not that I don't want hate. There's nothing wrong with being a Pilates instructor. Joelle's school actually, they teach you and you get a license to be, you graduate with a license.
Thing now with a lot of the dance
You get a
programs.
license to be a Pilates instructor. Great. So there is nothing wrong with being a Pilates instructor. However, if you're spending $101,000 a year times 4, and now you're spent $404,000, and now you're going to be a Pilates instructor, possibly making $35, maybe some of them make $55 an hour.
Right.
You're nowhere near over a $400,000 return on investment.
Right.
So you have to be realistic. Like, I wasn't looking for them to say Pilates instructor. I was looking
Right.
to say that was a summer job that they had while they were taking classes. And then they graduated, and some of them are on Broadway, or some of them are on Taylor Swift tour, or
Right.
I was looking on, some of them are on a company. That wasn't what I was looking for. But it doesn't mean that other people are not looking for that answer.
Right.
So everybody, you're a dancer, what they're going to school for. Ask the question, because that answer did not sit well with me or my daughter.
Plus, ask, like, what services does the school offer to help connect your dancer to that first job outside? Where are their alumni? Are they in certain companies or programs, or on Broadway, or working a tour that then they can help connect your dancer? Because that's so important. The connections in the dance world, it's a very small world. We know this. And it's so important to make those connections. And having an alum there is only going to help your dancer that much.
And when you go to these programs too, you should be asking the question, because you said it before, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I don't think people take advantage of that opportunity.
Right.
And I think that's your opportunity. You've already gotten into the school. Your opportunity now is to ask the hard questions that you may not be able to ask once you're in the school, because then it's grade affected, right?
Right.
So now is a time, ask those hard questions, every single one of them, because you're already in.
Right.
And a lot of the schools, like on those admitted days that we went to, they said, we have to convince you by May 1st to sign on the dotted line. Like, choose us, choose me. And I love that. I was like, finally, we're in the power seat after hell on wheels going through.
And college now is a big business. Despite what people say, it is a huge business. And these schools are vying for all of the same kids. You have to think about these really selective B.F.A programs. Most of them only have like 24, 28 dancers, freshmen. That's it. And some of the top programs, that's the case. And they are so selective in who they're going to accept. But then they're even more selective in who they're going to offer scholarships to. Can you get scholarships down the road? That's another question to ask. Is it just when you come in freshman year that you're eligible, or can you try to get additional scholarships as you're there through the dance department?
1,000,000,000%. So now I'm going to read you some stats here.
Okay.
So I was taking a look at it, right? So advice, as we're starting to wrap up this first episode. Advice for when you're starting to build your college list, right? To understand like what your dancer wants. So just in talking about like reach schools, reach schools would be Juilliard and USC. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And because it's just so hard to get in, like such a small percentage of people actually get into those programs. Target schools, if your kid is a good dancer, I'm looking at Point Park, Chapman, and Pace. Would you agree with that?
I think, I think so.
And then safety would be more strong regional programs where admission is generally more likely. And those are the programs you kind of have to get under the hood and find out like where those programs are specifically, like when we're looking at in-state, right?
Right.
And then location.
Yes.
Why location matters. You touched on some of it before. Like if you are in New York, you have a lot of the connections to the Broadway shows and the directors and the producers. Similar if you want to do acting, a lot of people
want to
be in LA, right? Because a lot of the
close.
Connections are, although that's changing too, but for the most part, that's like what you would specifically want. Location also becomes an issue when you're thinking about cost. And I touched on that before, but there is like, when are airline rates the most expensive? It's usually during the holidays.
Right.
And that's when your dancer is going to come home.
Right.
Or that's when you're going to go and travel to them. They're not silly. They know when parents have to go travel to colleges to go move in people. And the rates tend to be a lot higher during those times.
Right.
So every single time you go to one of these weekends, you're adding hotel, you're adding food, you're adding
Ubers,
the cost of the airfare or the car rental that you might, if people that are coming to California, they rent cars.
Right.
And you're adding that as well. And then your kid hasn't, they've been on a college budget, as they put it, and they want to be spoiled.
Yes.
And they want you to buy them this, and they want you to buy these weekends.
Yes.
These weekends turn into, and I'm not joking, anywhere from like $3,000 to $6,000 weekends. Right. And no different than
it's like a convention weekend on steroids, right?
Yes. I was just going to say that. It's exactly like when you're going to a convention. So for those of us that go to the convention world, we're used to it, but we're not used to paying $80,000, $100,000 for school and then add those weekends in. So very important that you are looking at it. So is there anything you think that we left out? I mean, I think we kind of gave a very raw, real approach to red flags that are out there, questions that you should be asking, the differences between the B.F.A, the Conservatory, the commercial dance. And these are things before you're building your list, you should be going on the internet, building out your spreadsheet. Very important.
Very important.
And we're going to share some spreadsheets out. A lot of friends. I mean, you have one. I have one. We will tag those spreadsheets on our website just so if people want to take a look at what should be. Now, the spreadsheets are outdated, right? Because mine's 2 years ago, yours from last year. But you should build your own spreadsheet. It's the only way you're going to stay on top of it. There are deadlines coming up. We know that this is a daunting, it is an overwhelming thing because most people, like my son, for example, who goes to USC, he filled out the Common Core application. He filled out the essay questions that USC was asking, sent in his grades, and you're done.
Right. Well, that's the thing that I think people don't anticipate is when you're applying for these dance programs, you are applying for the college. You're trying to get in academically, right, which is usually totally separate from dance. So you're doing all the things that a normal college student would do. But then you're doing a whole separate application with all the dance requirements. So it's like you're applying to 2 schools for every school that you're applying to.
Yeah, it is. And I remember when I was working with a college counselor, she's like, I feel like I need to charge you double because this is like 2 separate.
A lot of work.
It was a lot of work. So we are just about out of time, but we are going to come back for part 2 of this series so we can really get into like what that work looks like and break it down to make it easier. So thank you so much for doing part of 1 with this.
Yes.
ReJana. You see, I got it right. This is so exciting. And we're going to come back and we're going to break it down for you. And I'm hoping that everybody grab nuggets out of this because we want to make this less overwhelming because applying to schools is a lot just to begin with. And then you add on this artistic piece to it. It is next level. So thank you so much.
Yes,
and for those of you that are listening, choosing a college dance program isn't just about prestige or the fanciest name. It's about finding the place that will challenge you, support you, and set you up for your goals. Ask the hard questions, watch for the red flags, and definitely trust your gut because the next step, it's just not about the next 4 years. It's your investment. It's your launch pad for your future. And whatever path you decide, make sure to tune into part 2 of this college series where we will deep dive into the 5 most prestigious programs in the country next Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific. Until then, keep shining, everyone.
Don't let anybody treat you like regular glue because you're glitter glue. You sparkle, you shine. Get it, girl, get it, friend.